know Rachel, seen her around through the Fire Marshals Association. Many of you work with her. But Rachel, she definitely has been around the block a time or two with this little thing called PIO. She has served under many capacities. She has been a part of the Attorney General's office, the State Fire Marshal's office. Now she is in Harris County. She has been a part of some major situations that have occurred throughout Texas, including the West explosion. Of course, she served on the JIC for Hurricane Harvey and was the head PIO at the Arkema chemical explosion. So, and I could go on and on. I'm telling you, she's been there. Recently, I do want to personally congratulate her in front of everyone. She did receive her Master PIO, and that's one of only 60 in the entire nation. So that's a huge deal. I'm somewhat aware of that just from a PIO class that we have here. So congratulations to you, Rachel, and thank you so much for being here. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Well, welcome to Advanced Community Relations. So hopefully today we're going to be pretty interactive. I'm not going to sit up here and talk the whole time, but hopefully you at least take something back that you can use in your communities. So just a little intro. Andrea did a very nice job, but I do have 11 years of communication and PIO experience. I do have a master's degree in communication from University of Louisiana at Lafayette and an undergrad from the University of Texas, which I get a lot of crap for at work, but I'm a Longhorn and D-Roy's team beat us. I know. But I have worked mainly in the fire sector, but I did go into politics for about a year. Wasn't my deal. Left there and luckily got back into fire. So I'm really excited to be here. So from the first class I taught, we didn't talk anything about generations, and it was one thing on the surveys that people wanted to know more about. So when y'all are filling out your survey, if y'all think I'm missing something or want to see something additional classes could benefit from, please put it in the survey. But what they wanted to know is what are the different generations and how do we communicate effectively with them? So we're going to go over the generations. You have a handout in front of you that lists all the generations and some of their characteristics, and we're going to do a little activity with these here in a second. So if you want to start kind of looking through those, you can. So you may notice, I'm not sure, sometimes the dates are off when you talk about different generations. There may be a year or two that it's off. Well, that's just because it depends who you talk to and who's done the research, but normally they're within a year or two. So silent generation, these are going to be your Korean War, Vietnam veterans. They're going to be the richest and most free spending retirees in history. They're also big readers. So if we're thinking about how am I going to get a message to these people, am I going to use social media? May I do a press release and get it in the newspaper? Okay, so when you think about these different generations that we're going to talk about, that's what I want you guys to think about, and that's why we're going over this today, is to see what kind of people what kind of traits these generations have and how we can use that to our advantage when we need to communicate to them. So y'all can see that. So baby boomers, me generation. Anybody in here a baby boomer? Okay, so whoever's a baby boomer, I want you to look on your little chart and see if any of the different traits, is that you, or do you identify more with Generation X or even the traditionalist, which would be the one we just talked about. So go ahead and look at that for a second, we'll come back to it. But this is a me generation, rock and roll music. I don't know if y'all feel self-righteous and self-centered. Does that match some of the baby boomers? This is also the first TV generation, so TV was introduced and people grew up with TV. They're also very optimistic and team-driven, and they envision technology and innovation as requiring a learning process. So what is that? What do y'all think that means for us when we're trying to roll out either a new app or we're trying to roll out a new part of the website? Is that going to be always great for baby boomers, or are they going to think, oh God, it's another thing I have to learn?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, just keeping all this in mind. So where are my baby boomers at? Rusty, and you're a baby boomer, right? Did you identify with the things on the baby boomer, or did you identify more with traditionalist or Gen X?
Well, you know, a lot of the attributes I'm pretty much consistent with. Pretty competitive, I don't like to lose very often.
There you go.
And, I'm not too anti-establishment, although in my younger years, that was the case. I guess I grew up. Certainly live to work. I enjoy going to work every day, just, you know, and it makes me mad to see these younger guys who don't care whether they come to work or not. Something else is more important.
Right.
For me, you know, the work is more important.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's a lot of things in there that I can
Okay.
identify with.
Is there any baby boomer that doesn't identify with the baby boomer stuff and maybe more the Gen X or the traditionalist? Go ahead, Paul.
I'm a little more, I identify more with the traditionalist level, both in the values, just the way I was raised, but I guess was raised more in that line. I'm a little bit closer to the break-off line than probably most of the group.
Is it break off line with the years or break off line just with the different types?
Well,
or both?
With the years,
Okay.
mainly, but it's just, you know, the aspect of, you know, married one time and, you know, 40 years in climbing,
Right.
and, you know, that kind of stuff, just a little
Yeah.
more of the, I guess, the moral traditional components of it is more in line with what I'm.
And I think a lot, we're gonna get to millennials here in a minute, but a lot of that, I think, how were you raised? What kind of environment did you grow up in? And then do you share your parents' values, or did you kind of break off and go do your other stuff? Anybody else want to say? Go ahead,
I was
Randy.
just gonna say, looking at mine and looking at my years, I'm blended. I'm right in between baby boomer and Gen X. I can circle, you know, probably half of each, and it kind of fits me.
And I think that's what a lot of us are gonna see. We did this exercise in my first MPIO class at EMI, and there was only 2 of us in the class that were millennials, and of course we got the bad rap of the whole thing. But when we went through it, I was the same way. You know, totally there. I can see some traditionalists. I've got a little of everything. So, all right, Gen X, latchkey kids, very entrepreneurial, very individualistic. Government and big business mean little to them. I mean, y'all can read all this stuff. Any Gen X? Who's my Gen Xers in here? All right, Dean. Do you identify with them, or you do more baby boomers?
Yeah,
I know you're
see,
not
well,
millennial.
it's kind of like Randy. I feel like I'm kind of on the fence there between the 64 and 65 on both sides.
Okay.
So,
Michael, same for you too? So again, some of these dates, and I'll give my age away. I'm 2 years off of this one. So I definitely go back and forth between the two. So millennials, I know we get a bad rap, but we're all not that bad, I promise. What do y'all think about the second bullet point about its respect authority?
Who's? Yeah.
good statement.
Oh, who wrote that?
You said it's a true you said true statement?
Yeah.
No?
No.
And I guess it depends on who you talk to and what they're doing. A lot of people are talking about millennials, how they have managed to quote unquote change the world. Think about the McDonald's. Are they serving the nasty, you know, chicken nugget pink stuff anymore that they made the chicken nuggets with? So, you know, is it respect authority or is it challenge it? You know, it's up in the air. But again, millennials. So preferred digital literacy. So am I going to send them a newspaper? Am I going to send them a newsletter? Am I going to send them any of that stuff? No, I'm not going to read it either.
Most of them will take email.
Exactly. Or text me.
Seriously?
Don't even call me. Just text me. I'll get to you when I get to you, or I can do it while I can multitask, right? Prefer to work in teams. Do y'all have millennials that y'all agree with that? Like that are in your office that you agree they want to work in teams, or do they prefer to do their own thing?
They want to be together because they all keep helping each other to tell them, ask them what to do next.
Are you talking about my side of the hall, Dean?
No, I'm talking about my side of the hall.
No, I have a bunch of millennials that work. When I say a bunch, a couple.
We both do.
Yeah, we both do. And so, I see it both ways. I see that we do want to work in teams. I myself, especially in college, I didn't want to work in teams. I want to do it all myself because I don't want to depend on anybody else. So again, I think you're going to see crossovers in people, so you just have to learn your communities. All right, so Gen Z, that's the next generation. That's going to be even after millennials. And that's not on your, this little handout. But this is going to be people that are born 1997 to now. So these people have never known a world without computers or cell phones. Millennials, I at least grew up without a cell phone, and I got one eventually. Didn't have a computer right away, didn't have the internet. I still remember going to the library and having to do research and books. Gen Z will never know that. They will never know what it's like probably to go look at a card catalog. Probably don't even know what that is. Okay, so a lot of online stuff, and they're multitaskers. They don't sit around and do one thing. They're listening to music, they're playing a game, they're also doing other stuff. So that's just a quick breakdown of all the different generations right now. And this is a good overview, and y'all have the PowerPoint. I know it's very hard to read probably from back there, but this is a good little chart of what each generation is. And then the biggest one right here is this communication media. How do they want to be communicated with? Okay, so again, what we talked about earlier, our older generations, they don't care about a website. My grandmother doesn't even have a computer, much less a smartphone. So how am I going to communicate with someone that's a little bit older? I'm going to have to send it in the mail, or I'm going to have to get in the newspaper, or maybe even on television, right? So again, some of these are going to cross over, but just when you're dealing with a different public, know that your communication style may need to change based on your public. So is this true for baby boomers, face-to-face communication? Do y'all prefer that? Or would you rather do it by phone or email?
It sort of depends on the
Situation? Absolutely. And like we talked about Gen Z, it's FaceTime, right? I grew up without FaceTime. FaceTime was kind of new. I don't get on FaceTime a lot, but my nephews and my niece constantly, that's how they talk to people. They don't even pick up the phone and call. They're like, let me FaceTime them. So again, we just need to know that there are different communication tactics that work better with different generations. All right, so demographics. Know your community. Where do you guys get your demographic information from? Census? Where else? NFPA? Anybody have an office specific to your community, like your budget office or your development office to bring business in that really pulls numbers like this?
Community, also,
Yep.
So
Council of Governments has an.
That's a good one.
The Chamber of Commerce.
But don't they always get it from the
Chambers does.
census, really, basically? I mean, isn't all of it really come from the census?
Basically, but if you want to not do all the work and you get other stuff, they probably have it in a prettier package for you. But yeah, basically all the info comes from the census. So here's where you can find data, the census, and then if you go to the next two, it's the quick finder and the quick facts. And what they'll do is you just put your community in or your zip code or whatever you want to search by, and you pull that up. I just noticed an error on there, so proofread your work. It'll pull up specific for your community. So you can sit here and look, what's my demographics, what's my household income for this area. And you can break it down and see possibly where are your older people living at, where, are your lower income. So census is going to be your best friend. Where do you get your fire data from? From your own stuff, right? Okay. So here's some more places. Y'all mentioned some of these. USFA has a really good spot. What I would suggest is know your data for your community, though. Just because the nationwide data says something doesn't necessarily mean it matches what's happening in your community. Is unattended cooking, it's the #1 cause in the nation. Is it really that in your community? Maybe, but again, it's worth you finding out to know, do I need to spend the time and effort teaching and communicating about unattended cooking, or do I have a smoking problem? Or in this neighborhood I have a smoking problem, and in this neighborhood I have a cooking problem. So just make sure whatever your messaging is, it's backed up by one, by data, and two, you know who you're communicating with and how to most effectively communicate with them. So USFA has this great great community profile worksheet. And I don't like reinventing the wheel. There's no point in doing that. So if you can go, and this link is on here, do your community profile. Fill out this sheet. Once you fill it out, it'll tell you everything you need to know in your community, and then it'll help you understand what your risks are and maybe where you need to go and communicate, or what messaging you need to communicate and to who. Okay? So are these your at-risk populations in your community? Why are children are at risk? They play with fire, that's
They
one.
depend on others.
I'm sorry?
They have to depend on others.
They depend on others. What else?
They don't recognize the hazard.
Not supervised, don't recognize the hazards. As kids, did we know what the risks were, or did we just do stuff because we wanted to do stuff? So there's been some doctors out there that have said when a kid comes up and tells you, I don't know why I did it, they probably don't know why they did it. Their brain is not developed enough to understand why they did it. They just did it, okay? Why are older adults are at risk? Some of the same reasons, correct? But do they have mobility issues? Do they forget things? Okay. What about disabilities and developmental? What issues do we have with those? Maybe some of the same?
Wheelchair bound.
Okay.
Bed down.
Do we have some of the
Where
same?
are you putting in the mental health folks, is that in their disabilities there as well?
Yep. So autism, you know, we have mobile disabilities where you can't get out, you can't hear the smoke alarms go off, can't see, you don't know where you're going. There's a lot of different things. So I think we all recognize why these are at-risk populations. All right, so here are some appropriate approaches for children. Who does group presentations for kids in their communities? Anybody have a clown program or different programs like that where you go out to schools and it's a big group? Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Also demonstrate and practice. Demonstrate and then have the kids do it, right? Because that's how they're going to learn. They're not just going to learn by us saying, do this. Have them stop, drop, and roll. Have them draw out their house and make a plan. Use catchy songs and videos, right? Have y'all seen NFPA's videos for kids? Yes, they get stuck in your head and they don't go away, okay? But kids love them and they're free to use, so use them. Do we want to stand up there for 2 hours and present to a group of kids?
Good luck.
Are they gonna be around? Are they gonna be paying attention? Probably not. So keep them short. And again, do activities. Have them have some interaction. What are they so used to now? iPads, phones. There's constant stimulation. So if you're gonna stand there and just expect to talk to them and get through to them, it's probably not gonna work. So do some activities. All right, so this came from the last class, so you can thank them. So I have emojis. I have a smiley face, I have a sad face, and I have a poop emoji. So you can pick one, pass it around, each person gets one, just pick one. And then we're gonna do the do's and don'ts. So you can thank the last class for this. So when I say do or don't, you're gonna put up your emoji, whether or not, I mean, if you got a sad face, don't put it up for a good thing, but I just didn't want to have them print. Everybody has 3, so. We're just going to pass around and everybody gets what they get.
Well, the poop one for the back.
That's what I was saying.
Nobody got a poop yet.
Nobody wants a poop one?
We're saving that for the back.
I know Leroy wants
Yeah, well, I know Leroy wants one. He wants 2 of them.
There's a magnet to go with it. Juicer.
Ready, get ready.
Well, you don't have anything in here.
Cut one out.
Yeah, give Blunt one.
Is that Ned?
He's on that juice.
I know, I was like, why'd you do that this week?
Green juice all week.
Should've been green.
Yeah.
TMI, Blunt, TMI.
Really, we got food?
Just have pro.
Here's one more thing. Family now, right? You're talking about that.
Exactly, right? And as a teacher, it's alright, so what we're gonna do, basically, this is gonna be your children, these are gonna be the things we're gonna go through one by one, and if you think it's a good thing, you can put up your smiley face, if you think it's a bad thing, you can put up your sad face, or even your poop emoji if you want. Chocolate ice cream, yogurt, whatever. Alright, so remember, we're talking about kids. This is your at-risk population. Should we use basic principles when talking to them? Alright, good job, guys. Hey, I should have brought candy. Alright, should we use explicit images of burned items? So I'm glad y'all got that right, because I've had classes argue with me on that one, that said in certain situations it may be a good idea, and I'm like, I'm not really going for that, but okay. Children learn by doing. Alright. Repetition is important. Should we use adult humor? Use any children's book that talks about fire. I don't have all the bad stuff come out. We're not sure about this one?
Get that crap up in
And waving
Good
at you
job.
just don't care.
Should we frighten children with explicit stories?
there. Hell, yeah. Oh.
And we should we use positive language? All right. Good job, team. All right, so our second at-risk population is going to be older adults. So this is anybody after 65. So after 65, older adults are twice as likely to be killed or injured in a fire. Again, this is why they are at risk. 65 and older make up about 12% of the population, but think where that's going to go in the next 10, 20 years. 30-30, all baby boomers will be over 65. So let that sink in and let that think about how many more people we're going to have to communicate that are considered older adults. Okay?
This whole
So,
Thanks.
approaches and strategies that are good to help with older adults. Group presentations work well. Who goes to nursing homes and does presentations? Anybody? No? Let's say. No, somebody does. Home visits. Why do you think home visits are good?
You can assess their environment.
You can almost do a safety survey while you're there, right? And two, what if some of these older folks don't have anybody that comes to visit them? I mean, don't you think this might be the highlight of their day? And they probably listen and do the things you tell them to, right?
That's what I was gonna say, I mean, you gotta have the time to do that, because, and very selective with it, because it's a 2-hour window.
Oh, absolutely. And it can turn into, I'm here for 30 minutes to, how am I supposed to get out of here, right? So, I mean, have an exit strategy, right? But again, if you have staff, and I know that's a big thing for everybody, but these are just some of the things that work for this population. Who does smoke alarm install programs? What about fall intervention? Anybody do Remembering When? How do y'all do it? Do you go into places, or how does?
At the senior center.
Okay. That's a perfect place to do it at, because you've got an audience that can get themselves there and then take that information back home, tell their friends, all that kind of stuff.
How about hearing impaired
Yeah.
smoke detector program?
Huh?
Do that hearing impaired smoke detector program?
What is that company that's out there that does the shaking bed? They used to sponsor the conference.
There's several of them, with bed shakers, strobe.
Yeah.
We do a combination of both, actually.
There was a company that used to come to the TFMA conference that would donate a bunch of those, and they did all, I don't remember the name of them, but they are very good about donating if you need some of those. Do you have something, Rusty?
Well, I'm just saying, when I was in Galveston, we had this program called Senior Fire Busters.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we tried to do, it wasn't the fire department, it was community people,
Mm-hmm.
like the Neonopus and JC's on it. We had a real difficult time getting into the homes, to find out they had smoke detector or not. Because they weren't gonna answer the door,
Right.
either because they couldn't, or they were afraid to.
Mm-hmm.
And, so we attached ourselves to the Meals on Wheels.
Very good.
And the Meals on, they were there at a certain time, and they let them in every time.
Mm-hmm.
They said that if they were late or early, they didn't get in. But if they were on time, they got in. So these people were following behind them, you know,
Mhm.
enter at the same time. And we ended up buying little TVs, of course, that was 20 years ago,
Mhm.
with VCRs on them. And we'd show them this little short presentation and find that smoke detector or not. And if they did not, we'd, fire department follow up and put a smoke detector in.
That's
But
awesome.
initially, it was real hard to get to see them.
It is, and partnering and knowing who your partnerships can be in your community is a great way to get in those homes when you have a difficult situation. We did the same thing at the state when fire standard compliant cigarettes came out. We partnered with Meals on Wheels, and they delivered our little brochures in their meal packet just so the seniors would know about the new program. All right, so get y'all's emojis ready. All right. All right, should we walk among the audience for older adults? Put yours down. Put yours down.
You
So-
know, pat them on the shoulder, contact, they don't get hugs anymore.
How are they gonna hear you?
They can't hear.
Ding, 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 ding. So, again, I've had arguments in class about this one. My argument is, if I'm walking this way and they're looking this way and they're hard of hearing, mobility impaired, how are they gonna turn around to follow me? Can they hear me? So,
It's their aerobics.
it's should we look older adults in the eye? Come on, Rusty.
No?
No.
Oh,
Rusty
what
had his
culture?
poop emoji
Rusty,
up.
no, but-
What
culture?
Huh?
What culture?
That's a good point. That is a very good point that we're not talking about right now, but good point. Again, know your culture, because there are some that it is disrespectful to look the elders in the eye. Okay? Talk with your back to the audience. Good job. Talk to them, not at them. Don't be putting your sad face up. Good job. We don't want to, like, tell them what to do. We want to talk to them, not at them and say, you should do this, why aren't you doing this? Take a different approach. Should we treat older adults with respect? Very good, guys. Don't ask them about their encounters relating to a safety topic.
One time in band camp?
Very good. Why don't we want to talk to them? Why don't we want to ask them about that?
Storytelling.
Well, that's one part, but that's not the real part. That's one part, but that's not the real part. Okay, other than them going on and on, what would be another reason on why we wouldn't want to ask them about their encounters?
Could be a
Distraction.
a sad event in their life. Yeah.
Are they gonna tell you? Do they want to admit that they've done something wrong, or maybe are doing something wrong? Probably not. So remember, just talk to them, not at them. All right, so at risk with disabilities, this can be a number of things. These are just some I put up there. A lot of the autism I know we're seeing, are y'all seeing that in your communities? And are you doing anything specific for autism? I know Spring Fire Department had a open house that was geared toward folks with autism and disabilities like that, that were more visual, so no strobes, no loud sounds. They made their place very inviting. I know the Children's Museum in Houston does the less visual or less lights and sound stuff for kids with autism. But these are just some of the at-risk populations with disabilities that make them a higher risk of hurting themselves, getting hurt in a fire, or just in general? Has anybody's, not, it doesn't have to be your office, but dealt with the autism thing with the police?
So we were shown a presentation where I guess it was Texas Autism Society or the group out of Austin came and
Yep.
they made us aware of a YouTube video that has a lot of good points about emergency responders interacting with autistic children, and it's basically it's the opposite of what we're taught on how to handle people.
Yeah.
And so it's a good video that's out there to watch.
It really is. They came and spoke at the North Texas conference last year, I think, and they're a great resource. If you do find out that you have folks with autism in your community, that they are very willing to help you and help you learn how to talk to them and teach them fire safety or any other safety measures. I do know there are some, they're making these things that go over your seatbelt for kids with autism or different developmental problems, that if they're in a wreck or you get pulled over by the cops or there's anything like that, that the police officer understands that they're not acting out, there's nothing wrong with them, but it has a little thing over the seatbelt that kind of says, have autism or whatever it is. So there are things out there just to be aware of.
You mean like an identifier?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We used to utilize, we had a card, a laminated card we keep in our patrol bags. It was basically pictorial answers that we could.
Oh, good.
And it was a little bit easier of an engagement tool and, approaching.
It is.
Folks with spectrum, so.
Yeah, one of my best friends, her stepson is on the spectrum, and he can't verbally communicate. So they have very simple cards, are you hungry? What do you want to eat? And he points, and that's how they communicate. So it's important that if, someone with autism isn't taking your commands, they may not understand them, or they may not be able to verbally communicate to you. So this is just, we've talked about this kind of from the get-go, and again, with people with disabilities, create those bridges, create those partnerships with other people that understand it, and that they can help you do your job, and it'll help you educate those audiences. All right, last one for your emojis. Should we work in large groups? Why?
Kind of focus.
Focus, and can we give all of our attention to a big group?
They're pretty much one-on-one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Should we keep it simple? Stick with simple words. All right. Should we use gestures and verbal prompts? Okay, I got a mix. Who's gonna be right? Yes. Think why? If you had the poop emoji up, why do you think that's not a good idea?
Just depends, there's little pieces of that and it may work too.
It's true. So would you use gestures with the blind person?
Just for fun.
Be nice to Roy, be nice. Oh shoot. Should we teach one skill at a time?
Oh, yeah.
Alright. Do not repeat each message several times. How do kids learn? 1, 2, with disabilities. Remember, keep repeating them. And again, should we practice, practice, practice? Alright, good job. Alright, so here are some tips. Keep eye contact, give clear direction, encourage communication, and provide reinforcement. Why are all these important for the developmental at-risk population? And should we maybe use them across the board?
And it kind of seems to be fundamental to all of them.
Right? So just because you're developmental doesn't necessarily mean we're going to per se treat you differently, right? We don't want to go and make it seem like some people don't want to be treated special, right? So, respect, right? For anybody, that's where we are. Okay, so inside your community, who are some resources or partnerships that you could create to get messages to the public?
Red Cross.
Red Cross, that's a great one.
Department of Family Services.
That's a great one, because why?
Well, we work with with the foster care program.
And say, where can they get you into that you may not get into
Right.
by yourself?
Big homes.
There you go.
Local newspaper.
Local newspaper,
Yeah, public health.
public health, NFPA, anybody?
Yep.
Text dot,
Text dot, State
Your
Fire
own
Marshal's
agency.
office.
Your own
Text
agency.
Fireman, Fire Marshal Association. We just put a billboard up on 35 with
Nice.
them.
Very cool.
You can use your own agency by using the websites or Everbridge or
Mhm.
any of your large.
Absolutely. So, anybody use Safe Kids? I know they're very big in other states, but I've heard about them in Texas, but I don't know how big they are. Anybody in their communities work with them?
Is that where they put the placard on the fire
Child
stations?
safety seats.
No, they do a lot of the child safety seats. Kelly Ransdale is really big with Safe Kids. It's a national nonprofit, kind of like NFPA, but they're more not so fire specific. They're more child safety seats, fall prevention, pool safety. They do a whole gamut of stuff, but lots of free resources. And we talked about community partners again. Media, nonprofits, or your church is a good place to go. Why? Give me 2 reasons. Randy, I know you're thinking.
Like you said, yeah, they're like, it's central in every community.
Okay.
There's an audience already.
There's an audience.
They're plugged into your at-risk population.
Mhm.
They're willing to help.
Say it again, Paul.
They're already plugged into your at-risk populations.
Very good. And can they maybe be a bridge to those communities that maybe don't speak English? Or that are maybe afraid of law enforcement or police? Could they maybe be our partner if we notice we're having a fire in a very specific demographic? Boys and Girls Clubs, I'm sure they're looking for presentations and whatnot, so that's a good partner. Fire Hospital's a good partner. What can they help us with?
We have
Hospitals.
an interest in burn and accident prevention, which overlaps what we're dealing with. And I would also go out and in some cases, like with your county hospitals, once again, they have outreach programs to some of your at-risk populations, your new moms that are low income, things like that.
True. And what can they give us that maybe we don't know about? Do we get called on every single burn?
Nope. You should.
We should, but we may not know. They may be able to give us that info and say, we're noticing, boiling water burns or whatever the case is. And they can help us with that. Local government we talked about. Yes, sir.
Is that a HIPAA violation as far as giving that information out? It's not people's names.
Yeah,
no,
it's just
no.
stats.
Yeah, stats, yeah, so.
And I know our office has relationships with some of the hospitals to get in and talk to them after possibly a crime or whatever else, and that's just developing those relationships. But if you're just specifically looking for a number and maybe a locale, I don't think it's a HIPAA violation. How can your colleges and universities help you? Especially if you're undermanned or staffed. Interns. So when I was at the State Fire Marshal's office, I needed an entire campaign done on fire standard compliant cigarettes. I got into the University of Texas advertising department, PR department, and I had 3 entire PR and advertising campaigns by the end of the semester. They present them to you and you can take and use what you want. So if you've got a local college, see if a lot of their professors are looking for projects for their kids to do. Get in there, and if it's free work, by all means. We're all doing more with less, right? So if somebody else is needing that, because what does it give them? It's not just free work, right? I mean, they're getting something out of it.
Right.
When they graduate, what do they have now? They have experience and a portfolio that they can say, I did this, and I worked with this, okay? Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, it's pretty. Anybody have Eagle Scout projects that y'all work with your community in? Okay. Again, USFA, no need to recreate the wheel, but they have these community sheets that you can print out and do a self-eval for your community and have everything right there for you. Alright, so we're about to go into our first little activity and then break, so we're almost to the first break. But now, okay, we've talked about, you're getting a break. You're you're gonna get a break here in a second. We gotta do an activity first. I promise it won't be hard. So, you know your generations, you know you gotta talk to them differently, you know your at-risk communities, you know all of this information, right? So what do you do with it? We've got all this information. How do I make it to a spot that I understand what this information means, right? So, you write a problem statement. And that's what we're gonna do. You're gonna get in groups and you're gonna write a problem statement. So what's in a problem statement? Who? Who's affected by this? Okay? What's the issue? Is it older adults cooking? Is it youth setting fires in the summer because they're bored? So your who and your what, okay? When? When does it happen? Where would we get this data from? Maybe our fire reports? Are we seeing, again, are our youth fires spiking in the summer because they're not in school and they don't have anything to do? Or are they spiking in the middle of the day? What's the problem? When is it happening? And where, again, where is it occurring? Is it occurring in nursing homes? Is it occurring in low-income areas? Is it occurring in the highest income in your neighborhood? Okay? And then why? Why is it important to fix the problem? That should be pretty easy and across the board, right? And I'll put this back up. But what we're going to do, we're going to break into groups, do a little research, pick one community, okay? I don't want everybody to do this, it would take too much time. But in your groups, pick one community, look this up, and write me a problem statement, okay? Have y'all been in groups before?
Yeah, city and county, basically.
Okay, well, we're not doing that. How many of our, there's 26.
We're doing Tommy Bucky.
Let's number, let's see, by four. Start with one, we'll do to four, and then split off in your groups.
1, 2, 3,
4,
1, 2, 3, 4,
1,
2, 3,
4.
4, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. David's 1. I'll be number 2, 3, 4.
All right, perfect. So if y'all just split up in your groups, do a little research. And again, we don't have a lot of time, and I'm not going to keep y'all past time. I want to get out of here early too, just like y'all do. So do it. Do a little bit of research. If you already know, if somebody's got a really good understanding of your community, do it fast, okay? But what I really want to see is this, and then we'll self-report out, okay? So I'll give you about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and self-report.
Or number 2.
Or the faster you finish. Okay, hold on. How about, hold on guys, let's do this. At 2:15, we'll come back, okay? Now let's say, okay, 2:20. 2:20, we'll come back and self-report. So if y'all get done faster, you get a little longer of a break. If not, we're reporting at 2:20.
Absolutely.